Welcome to the JOMA podcast, presented by the Jewish Orthodox Women's Medical Association. Every week, hear from expert medical professionals as they share up-to-date insights on health topics to help you live your best life physically, mentally, and emotionally. Join us as we navigate the ever-changing landscape of healthcare and strive to improve the health of the Orthodox Jewish community.
Welcome to the JOMA podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Berkovich, board-certified pediatrician and director of education for JOMA. My guest today is Ellin Gurvitch, founder of Mentally Fit with Ellin. Ellin is a licensed mental health counselor in New York and Florida, a certified nutrition and performance coach, and the founder of Mentally Fit with Ellin. She specializes in empowering high achievers to unlock their full potential by addressing the full spectrum of wellness, mental, physical, and nutritional. With a holistic, evidence-based approach, Ellin helps clients build resilience, optimize performance, and cultivate long-term well-being. I want to add a disclaimer that none of what was discussed on today's episode should be used as medical advice. Welcome, Ellin. Hi, Ellin. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic, but before we get into the importance of wellness and mental resilience and all of that, I'm so curious about how you even started in the field.
Oh, I thought you were going to say started your day.
I'm sure we'll get into that too.
How I started in the field. That's a good question. So, I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Hartford in psychology. And while I was studying, I took this amazing sports psychology class, and it was the first time I noticed in my body that I was so excited during class. Like I had like butterflies in my stomach, and I was like, wow, I am so interested in like performance and sports and health within psychology. So one of my sports psychology professor became a mentor of mine, and I told her I'm super fascinated working with high achievers, athletes, performance. How can I go into the field and focus on that in psychology? So she gave me a few different options, and I decided to get my master's in mental health counseling to become a therapist because I love working with people and I love the psychotherapy part of it. And then I took a few classes at the University of Washington State in sport and performance psychology, and now I am where I am. I just a few months ago, almost more than a few months ago, I finished my licensure. I took my boards, finished my hours, and it's like 3.5 months that I'm off on my own. So my own practice. So it's super exciting and a building stage.
That's really cool. I've heard of sports psychologists, and I think it's something that I just assume is like offered to like professional athletes or elite athletes. How does that background help you with like working with just kind of like, regular people who are not professional athletes?
Yeah, it's a good question because actually in the past in college, I always wanted to work with professional, but now I love working with people who are just like the average person, the modern day. Call them modern day athletes. And those even include parents because parents are athletes juggling so much at once, students.
On a very basic level, what is the connection between performance and physical fitness and like the mental health or like mental resiliency?
It's a good question. So you perform really based on how you talk to yourself. If you want to perform well, you know, get a good workout, um, manage yourself, in a boardroom, your self-talk is so, so important. And that also dictates your relationship with yourself, your mental health. How you're talking to yourself dictates your confidence, your anxiety, your self-view. And I believe all of that is interconnected with our mental health, performance, and how we feel about ourselves in a broader scheme.
Are there common challenges or common like pitfalls that you see amongst people who maybe see themselves as high achievers or are high performers, but there's like a common thing that they maybe do incorrectly from a mental health standpoint?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of us are not acknowledging our emotions. We're not noticing our anxiety and having like a relationship with it. Oftentimes we just like push it on the rug and you keep on showing up. And when you don't acknowledge your emotions or notice your anxiety and form a relationship with it, actually going to come back even more strong. So by noticing your anxiety and slowing down and honoring it and starting to validate it and like working with a therapist or a performance coach, that's so helpful. And that is what mental resilience is, like noticing when, okay, maybe I need a little help.
It feels a little bit like almost paradoxical, right? On one hand, you're saying like self-talk is important, like having, I don't know, right? Like a positive, a positive conversation with yourself and right, thinking of the types of achievements that you may want to accomplish. On the other hand, you have to be able to face, right, blockages, anxieties, and things like that. How do you reconcile it two?
Yes. How do you do both? Yeah, I think it's about finding the balance. I think it's about um like noticing the voices in your head and forming a relationship with it. And it's not a bad thing. It's just information. So taking the negative aspect or connotation away, it's just information. Like I was nervous before this podcast. It's not because, you know, my nerves aren't my identity, but it's just information of how much I care. So when you reframe some of your thoughts is information and it's telling you something, it becomes more positive. I care so much like of what I'm telling this audience and my connection with you that I was nervous before I got on here. But then I reminded myself it's how much I care and I'm a trained professional to do this. And it's normal to be nervous as trained as you are.
Can you give me an example of how this would manifest in athletic performance?
Before any game for youth athletes, student athletes, college athletes, I guide my clients to practice visualization. And I use this skill for not just athletes, just to put that out there, high performers, parents, anyone who just wants to have like decrease their anxiety and stress and to feel more confident. I want you to visualize yourself already there before you're there. I want you to think about the outcome. I want you to be in your body. Do you notice any tension? I want you to think about how it's going to feel when you win, if that's what you want, or like after your workout, just but for average day people, how is it going to feel after your workout? It's so hard to just get to the gym, but I want you to get to the after before the before. It's kind of like a tongue twister. But if you see where I'm going with that and you visualize that, you wake up in the morning and like let's say you want to get your workout done. Right away, think about the after before you do it, before the before. And that visualization aspect already allows you to get to the task before you're already there. And then when you're there, it's easy. But that's like a mental skill you have to work on. So it's like every day doing that. It's even before coming on this podcast, I visualize how it's going to make me feel after. And that's what calms my anxiety before, because it's like, okay, like I'm rushing for that dopamine. It's going to feel great.
I love that. I love the idea of like visualizing the success and like really feeling of like letting yourself experience it before it actually happens. I am so curious. So we talked a lot about those so far on the effect of mental health and right mental visualization, all that on performance. Let's talk about how it works the other way around. Because this is something that, right, as a doctor, that really interests me. And I feel like we don't really, as a society, have a good grasp on yet. The effect on um, mental health, the effect that like physical fitness, right, and nutritional wellness has on your physical health. So, for example, there is, I don't want to say like a notorious study, but one that like in my circles is talked about a lot, the effect on running compared to anxiety and depression medication, like where they had a group that right was diagnosed, a group, I don't think it was women, I think it was just like a mixed group of people who were diagnosed with mild to moderate anxiety and depression, and they had half of that group like on typical medication that we usually prescribe for people with that diagnosis, and the other half were prescribed a certain amount of miles that they had to run. And then the outcome was like whether or not their scores that we use to measure the amount of anxiety and depression somebody has, whether or not they improved. And the group that was running actually improved more than the group on the medication. So this idea that like being active and physical fitness really, really, has a positive influence on your health is very interesting to me. Tell me a little bit about how you incorporate that in your work.
And I incorporate it in my work because I went through it myself, truly. So I know how powerful it is. Everything I do, first of all, it's evidence-based back, but also like I went through it. I used to be that girl that was so insecure. I have a learning disability and dyslexia, so I always felt like I was never heard, fit in, I was never seen. Once I started prioritizing fitness and health, I was like, wow, I could do this. I started showing up for myself. I started getting strong. I felt less anxious, less inflamed. I was like, wow, I could do hard things. And once I started forming that reputation with myself, my self-talk changed. I was like, you're awesome. Like, good job, Ellen. And I said, Ellen, because that's my name. Like, good job. And I kept doing it. And that's how I really got to where I am and why I love working with athletes, people who are motivated. I love using fitness and health as a support for anxiety, depression, other medical challenges. I mean, there's so much research backed how like running, the endorphins, the dopamine, strength training, what that does for you. Strength training is so important. People think it's just running, but strength training does so much for your mental health, your neurotransmitters, everything.
Tell me more about that.
So when you're lifting, it releases some types of, I'm not a doctor, but neurotransmitter in your brain, yeah, and you will feel like a lot of like happiness and you for like a good feeling after your workout. And also by lifting, it's such in my belief, it's such an empowering act, especially as a woman, to lift something, like especially if like maybe because it's so like a lot of people think it's just for men, but when women are doing it and you're showing up strong and you take that into like maybe being a mom or a student or a CEO, everything that you're lifting in the gym, you could lift outside.
Once you see somebody kind of either come to you as a client or just like in general go on, let's call it a wellness journey, right? Where they decide, okay, I'm going to commit to moving my body and making good food choices and working on my mental health. And like they go all in. And right, we see that a lot in like January when people make New Year's resolutions, or like for us, right? We're in Rosh Hashanah, like people make resolutions like I'm going to change my life. And then they kind of stick with it for I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, etc., and then very slowly kind of either fall off the bandwagon or go back to the choices they were making previously. Do you see like kind of common themes or pitfalls around why that happens, and how can people prevent going back to their old habits?
I see two pitfalls, the all or nothing approach
Mhm.
and that you're doing it as a chore and not as a lifestyle. So all or nothing, it's either very black or white thinking, yes or no, good versus bad. Um, so obviously if you go to the gym because like you have to and you have to go all out every single day, or you have to focus on your nutrition every single day and don't create like that middle ground, of course it's hard to maintain. There's no balance with that. And that's very demanding. The second one is that fitness should be fun. Focusing on your health should be fun. There should be some type of enjoyment because when there's an enjoyment element, that's what causes motivation. You're going to want to do it more. So I want you to move your body. I want you to eat things that feel fun, that feel enjoyable.
I have a feeling that a lot of the listeners are like nodding. Yes, I know it's important. Yes, I know I need to like move my body and lifting weights is good and eating color. Yes, yes, yes. But I just don't have time, right?
Mm.
That's like the very, very
Okay,
common
right?
thing. And I've heard this from people like moms. I've heard this from women. I've heard this from men, people who work outside the home, don't work outside the home. Like in general, that's like the narrative that I think a lot of us have created. Like we don't have time. How do you start that conversation?
I like to reframe that and focusing. kind of like on my last point, how we want to make a fun, enjoyable, and as a lifestyle, how could we fit this into your lifestyle? So we'll look at their schedule, their demands, what is important, what are things that are non-negotiables, and we'll try to adjust. Like, what if you were able to meet up with a friend and go for a walk with them instead of meet at a coffee shop? It only takes like one friend to propose that. Sometimes we're so scared to like change up routine, like, oh, they don't want to walk. We predict what other people want. But if you're gonna model that, people will follow. If you're a mom listening and like it's hard with the nutritional aspect, bring your family together. Do this with your husband. Um, have it's a team. It's not just you. You don't have to be alone in it. Um, you can make it a part of your lifestyle. And sometimes we'll also look at what could you take away maybe in your life that's like not meaningful and that is just in your routine out of habit. So maybe like you're spending too much time on social media. Okay, well, that's a big chunk of your day, like an hour in the morning. No, we're not scrolling anymore. We're going to the gym. What do you want more? So people spend so much time like on their phones and not working on themselves. I used to always be that person. Like I would wake up, scroll. Now I don't even, I wake up, have a glass of water, have my matcha, and like get my butt to the gym.
I think people don't even realize it. I want to just like bring that to people's attention. People don't realize where the time goes. I know this because I got into the habit a few years ago of tracking my time,
Ooh,
literally tracking on a spreadsheet. And I go through like sort of like periods where if I find that I'm not happy with how I'm using my time or I can't recall how what I did right that day or like kind of where the time went, I'll go back to this exercise and I have a spreadsheet. There's like a time management person that talks a lot about this and has good tools for it, but you don't need anything fancy, just like an Excel spreadsheet and you track by half hour increments. And it's fascinating how much time is
fascinating.
wasted. And I just really I think it's a really good exercise for people who say like not say they don't have time, feel like they don't have time. They truly feel that way. I know they're not just saying it. To identify windows of time in your day where you don't have to do the thing that you were doing. You can actually do a quick workout video, or you can go for a walk. All right, you can use that time to, cook some vegetables for dinner and do something small but sustainable that's going to make a difference in the long run.
Exactly. And I love that. That visualization element makes it real. So I'll even tell my clients, put everything in your calendar. My calendar has my gym workout, follow up with this person, make this call, meal prep, like everything. Just try. It doesn't have to be forever, but put in your calendar for a week and see like what's going on. And look at this with no judgment. I always say this is the mantra I want you to use. Curiosity over judgment. Just be curious. Notice your time. Notice these things. Be curious about it because when you're curious about it rather than judging it, that's more likely for you to make change. We could make the time. Some things might have to go, but if you really want it, you could do it. And I know each and every one of you listening can.
If someone is really like, let's say they're listening to this or they've been thinking about this for a long time and they're like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start tomorrow. But like, it's so much, right? We're covering so much ground. There's like the nutrition aspect. There's the mental health aspect. There's the physical fitness like aspect. It's a little bit overwhelming and a little bit intimidating. Where do you start if you just like, okay, I want to do it. What is it? And what's step one?
Well, you could see me because we look at all those pillars of health. First, we'll just like break it down. Sometimes you have so many thoughts in your head, so I'm that person that's just gonna let's put it out there. Let's put it on paper. Let's break it down. Let's visualize it because that's step one. We need to bring awareness to what's going on. And then we'll just take it day by day and I'll help you create a balanced routine. That's not the all or nothing because that's not practical and we don't want you to fail. And then when you fail, that means I could imagine how you might say not nice things to yourself, and that's not going to be encouraging for you to try again. So small and steady. So I think the first step is just seeking the help and building the awareness of what's going well and what do I need support in.
Are there any things that you like typically start with in terms of like actionable steps, so kind of like either themes or pillars that you try to guide somebody into?
So honestly, the calendar element is a big, big one. Like we'll track what they're doing, we'll track their thoughts, we'll track the behavior. It's very CBT oriented and skills oriented. So that's a form of bringing the awareness element and noticing what's going on in my day and what's going on in my head, and in my behaviors. And when you build on that awareness element and you notice all that, that's what will help us make some of the changes.
Are there any specific, from like a movement standpoint, a physical fitness standpoint, is there anything that you like recommend more often than not? So we talked a little bit already about weightlifting, but like in general, let's say you have someone who really has been sedentary for the most recent part of their life. How do you transition from no movement to some movement?
I would recommend start going on longer walks to start. Walking is a great form of exercise. We don't realize walking is so good. And then I would say start small, like maybe a 15-minute like HIIT workout or a yoga workout, small increments, like the 15 minutes. Maybe you can find 15 minutes in your day instead of Instagram, instead of an hour. And then we build on that and we notice how they're feeling. Is there any tension? So small and steady. You have to like wake up the body and you have to wake up the mind to these new behaviors.
It's interesting that we've talked about nutrition, about physical fitness, right? Wellness, all of these things. We have not once mentioned weight. And I think that that's really important because like none of this has to be tied to weight loss. That may happen as a result of maybe making some changes, right? But that's not what we're trying to achieve here. We're talking like you don't have to be overweight to benefit from this. Everyone's going to benefit from making these changes.
That is such an important point. It's not about weight. It's really about your mindset and like the mental reps you get. Like just as you want to build your biceps, your arms, we got to build our mental muscles. Our mind is a muscle. Every day when you work on your coping skills, every day when you practice those positive affirmations, every day when you visualize yourself succeeding, those are mental reps. And those are so important. When you go to the gym and you do these hard things, it's not about the weight. The weight that will come if that is your goal. And anyone could do this. It's really about what it's going to give you mentally, and then your body follows. But our mind is always trying to manipulate us. So I believe like focusing on your mindset first.
I like that a lot. Ellen, we covered so much ground today. Is there anything that you want to mention or anything that's like a pearl or a key takeaway that you want people to walk away with?
We're not always going to feel motivated. And to be honest, I am not always motivated. I know maybe I'm sounding like always motivated and always hyped up. And yes, I have that personality, but there are days that are really hard. But oftentimes I focus on the plan, not the feeling. I think about the after before it happens. And by doing that, we create habits and we create a lifestyle. So motivation comes and goes. Motivation is a gimmick. Like it doesn't really exist.
It's fun when she shows up, right? But you can't
So
rely on her.
yes, score. But it's the habits, it's the discipline, it's the lifestyle, it's the why. Why are you doing this? And I'll leave it at that.
I love it. Ellen, thank you so much. This was fascinating. We're going to put a link in our show notes for where people can find you, get in touch with you, and read more about the amazing work that you're doing.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the JOMA podcast. We welcome your feedback and ideas for future episodes. Send us an email at health@joma.org. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform.